Let me just remove my face, or rather put my face up. And I forgot that I had that screen up, and that screen up. Okay, so because of some various issues, I've had to rearrange my schedule slightly. Last night, of course, if you were watching Discordant Dragons, you'll notice that about 15-20 minutes before the end of the show, I vanished. That would be because my power went out, and was out for an extended enough period of time that, well, let's just say it didn't work out well. In any case, I'm very happy to see that there's quite a lot of people in chat. I do apologize for letting you sit being bored, Callum, but yeah. I had to extend the time for the stream to a time when I knew I would have a quiet area to work in. In any case, I do appreciate all of you guys being here. And as, oops, this one, there we go. As I am wont to do, I am in fact going to promote my friend Christopher Everard's Kickstarter one more time. I will grab that link and throw it in chat as well. And that should be right there now. There we go. Oh, send. There we go. Callum says his day was average, his night average, otherwise been okay. Well, you know, people who haven't lived quiet lives or have had extreme chaos and havoc in their lives learn very quickly to appreciate the quiet times and discover that what other people will call boredom is actually peace. Do let me know if my sound is low. I will endeavor to either speak up or crank my mic a little bit. Let's see here. Okay, so with the Christopher Schilling out of the way, I will get on to the first topic at hand, which is an interesting little movie that I watched earlier today. And I call it interesting because it was actually somewhat difficult to get through. No offense to anyone who happened to be involved with it. And I did actually tweet at the screenwriter, Edward Rich, or Riche, depending on how one chooses to pronounce it, because there is a scene, let me see here, at about 1:06:15, and I will put that timestamp in the chat. 06:15, which actually, well, I'll give you a little bit of background first. Callum Dayton, I'm guessing much like in South Africa, some animal sat or trampled on the internet cable. Was it a moose this time? No, it appears to have been the wind that did it this time, actually. Or possibly freezing rain. But I don't think we had any in my immediate region. So I suspect it was just the wind possibly blew a couple of branches into a line or something. I mean, everything is put up with spit and baling wire here, so what are you going to do? Oh, it was a mouse farted on the line. Sorry, Stormy, I didn't realize that. In any case, I'll talk a little bit about this movie, Secret Nation. It was filmed partly in Newfoundland, mostly in St. John's, mostly in Petty Harbor. Actually, sorry, I shouldn't say partly. I should say mostly in Newfoundland, mostly in St. John's, for that matter. The background in this image, of course, appears to be Montreal. I'm not 100% sure that it is. It may be stock footage from somewhere else. But just to give you an idea of the film itself, the quality that we're looking at, there are a lot of different shots from around St. John's, places I've been myself. Let me see here. This is, for instance, inside the... Oh, a little bit more, a little bit less. Let me see. There we go. Okay, that doesn't want to do that for me. Fine, be that way. I'm just looking for... yes, there is actually a sort of sex scene. It's not great, but it is what it is. There's a lot of use of archival footage in this film. I believe if I can get it lined up properly, I should be able to show it to you guys. But there is a lot of archival footage. Let me see if I can find one of those good sections. There's a lot of discussion of the Confederation debate from here in Newfoundland. This is the scene I was talking about at 106. Sound is good, no worries, thank you. I guess I've got a pretty good bit of lag going on as well, which isn't surprising. But this is another, let me see, okay. I'm just going to have to go seconds at a time. So this is actually shots of Petty Harbor in the early 90s. There is something I do have a complaint about with this particular scene. No one in Newfoundland would be driving an open-air Jeep like this. This is one of the issues with a movie made in Newfoundland in the early 90s. It suffers from 80s... Oh, hi, Double Lot 22. Good to see you. It suffers from a little bit of the 80s TV movie fashion hangover. The scene furniture fashion hangover. Now, I understand the practical application of filming in a Jeep like this makes it much easier to light the scene. The issue I have is that driving that is going to be cold. Very cold. But just to give you a little bit of an idea about what the movie is about, and if I can find it again, I'll bring back the actual title, because like a damn fool I didn't make note of the actual, well, we'll just see if we can get the title up. There we go. Okay, so the movie is called Secret Nation, and the idea is that this history doctoral student who's working on her thesis is investigating conspiracy theories about the Confederation debate here in Newfoundland during the 40s, the late 40s. Some of those conspiracy theories, of course, I've heard and get quite the kick out of them. Let me see. Okay, I'm just looking at my OBS dashboard, and it's giving me a couple of interesting things. No warnings, though. That's good. Oh, apparently I've dropped some frames. That's not so good. Okay. But it's mostly due to the fact that I'm kind of stressing my system. In any case, the movie is focused on Kathy Jones's character, Kathy Jones being a Newfoundland actress, comedian generally, and generally a fairly good one, at least as a comedic actress. I don't know that I've ever seen any of her stand-up, if she has done any. But there are some issues with this movie, and I don't actually recommend it, to be honest. If you're not interested, deeply interested in the story of what happened with Newfoundland during the Confederation era, it really won't hold any real interest for you. That said, as I said, there is a very, very good scene at 106:15, which kind of encapsulates the feeling of a lot of Newfoundlanders about... hey, Monkey. Just popping in to say hi and leave a like. Thanks, man. Yeah, you have a good night, Monkey. So yeah, the story is fairly straightforward. The pacing in this film is really, really slow. This movie is almost it's almost 2 hours long, and really it could have been maybe an hour and 15, maybe an hour and 20. Probably would have been more than enough. There's a few things that are kind of unique to Newfoundland culture that are presented here. There is one scene where two people get together over dinner. That was actually just before the sex scene, if I can zoom back to find that. Which would be... No, that's far too far forward. Right around... Where am I here? Okay, a little more. She goes on a date with a fella, which leads, of course, to the encounter. This fellow here, I think, if I'm not mistaken. No, okay. For those of you who don't know who this is Rick Mercer. The odds that you don't know who he is and you're Canadian are pretty freaking low. The odds that you would be a Newfoundlander and not know who Rick Mercer is are damn near nil. He's probably one of the best comedians we've produced. He has done great stand-up in the past. He has also done, quite a bit of acting. FPS looks at about 20 at the moment as far as I can judge. Yeah, I appear to be dropping frames. It says 30, but I don't know for sure. And I don't know that I can change that right now. Let me have a look here. No, cancel that. I'm not going to mess with settings right now, but I will make a note to look at my frame rate. Anyway, I'll go through the review fairly quickly because the meat of the story of the show tonight is not actually this film. It's actually the some of the conspiracies around Confederation. Let me see. This fellow here, played by Ken Campbell, is actually probably one of the funniest over-the-top sort of villains I have seen in a long time. And knowing what I know about Stormy, she's probably losing her mind looking at his eyebrows. Considering she loses her mind at mine a lot of the time. But one of the issues I have with this fellow's performance, as well as some of the other performances, and I don't mean to put this all on the actors, I'm sure some of this is also deservedly on the director. There's a lot of really ham-handed acting in this film. It's very overplayed. This fellow, for example, he absolutely chews the scenery, but not in an entertaining or engaging way like, say, Cate Blanchett in Thor Ragnarok. This is more as if he's chewing the scenery just for the sake of chewing the scenery. And it's a problem that exists throughout the whole movie. This character's name is Parkinson. It's kind of funny. He has a bit of a disease. He is definitely a villainous figure. As far as I could ascertain from watching the movie, he's not a Newfoundlander himself and has an extremely low opinion of Newfoundlanders. Basically, he's the sort of come-from-away that we really hate here in Newfoundland. Ignorant, as we would say. The pace is a little slow. It's melodramatic, overacted in spots. One of the things I was going to mention earlier that I actually skipped past, and I'm going to try to get back to where I was looking at it. This scene right here, which is before they get shagging. Here. Okay. So they're sitting down to have dinner, and one of the things that is somewhat unique to Newfoundland culture is that they discuss family histories, religion, different connections to family, things like that. It's played very well in this movie because it actually does create a good plot element. It acts as a very good plot element because it gives the idea that, okay, there is a connection here between these characters that is extended beyond the characters. Let's see. Kellen Dayton says he hasn't been to a restaurant for almost 3 years. Speaking of restaurants, I will bring something up. This is actually a dinner that's this fellow is hosting. Good, you can actually see my mouse, or my cursor, rather. You'll notice that I did not put a like on this particular file, because I don't like it enough to throw it a like. And as I said, Double-Out22, I think you may have missed it, though I don't think you were necessarily here. I would not recommend this film. If you're not a Newfoundlander or extremely interested in how Newfoundland came to be part of Kanakistan, how Newfoundland came to be part of the Canadian mosaic, it probably won't really interest you. Let me see. Stormy has said something, but it hasn't quite scrolled up far enough yet. But yeah, I would not put this film on my recommendation list. What else would I say? I am the bush, What? Yeah, but the fact that they discuss each other's family histories as part of the small talk is fairly unique to Newfoundland culture. Parky Boy looks like a bald version of Sir Humphrey from Yes Minister. I think he may have been trying to play it that way a little bit in sort of a villainous role, but it's very over the top. Let me see here. There is an absolute... Oh, speaking of restaurants, and you did mention restaurants, there's actually a scene that features one of my favorite restaurants from St. John's when I used to live there. Here we are. This, and Stormy may very well remember this place as well. I just need to bounce back a little ways. There we go. If you happen to remember Leo's restaurant, Leo's used to make the best fish and chips you will ever have in your life. That's all. I just wanted to share that. Unfortunately, Leo's closed, I believe it was around 5 years ago. Before the unknown virus of unknown origin caused everybody to lose their frigging minds. But again, here, there's this scene really has nothing to add. She has an interaction with this fella here, who is either drunk, handicapped, or both. And it really does nothing to forward the plot. Callum Dayton, you just reminded me of a horrible... And unfortunately, I can't see the whole chat. Here we go. I just reminded him of a horrible joke. Nature Moon. Hello, Nature Moon. I do believe you're new. Excuse me. I need to get a little water. I'm getting a little dry. Actually, no, I think you have been here before, Nature Moon. I can't remember for sure, and I do apologize, but my memory is pretty shitty. And my attention span is absolutely terrible tonight. One of the other things... Okay, I haven't dropped too many frames, at least. Just check. I keep checking my my dashboard. Anyway, there is... Let me see. Yeah, I did talk about the scene where she interviews Joey Smallwood. And I do want to give a very big thank you to Edward Rich, or Reish, for basically encapsulating how a lot of Newfoundlanders still feel about Confederation and about the way it was done. Talked about that. The archive footage, like I said, was very good. Now, the thing with the archive footage, the archival footage that they use, a lot of it is black and white, a lot of it is very grainy, because it's some of it is a century old at this point. And really the interest there for me is more of a national pride sort of level. Rick Mercer. There's a great scene where Rick Mercer actually dresses up as a Catholic archbishop, which, yeah. If you know much about Rick, that's friggin' hilarious. There's a scene towards the end where Kathy Jones's character picks a lock. And all I'm left wondering about is how on earth, and I believe it's just about here. No, might be back here a ways. Yeah, so there's a scene here. She's gone to a costume party, and she picks a lock on an archive door because she's trying to get to these documents. How on earth did a history doctoral thesis student candidate manage to learn to pick a lock? That's one of the big issues of bad movie logic that I have here. Like I said about the pacing, the plot in this doesn't thicken until there's less than half an hour left. Like, this is the point at which the pace really starts to pick up, and it doesn't really pick up all that far. There's a really weird scene. She's almost caught. Now, these gentlemen here, if I can get to show you these guys. Yeah, these two fellas, this guy in the suit here, and I believe this guy. They're some sort of British spy. And yeah, I don't mind spoiling the hell out of this. It's a 30-year-old movie at this point, and like I said, I don't really recommend it. But one of the big issues I have is these guys are never identified as anything other than mystery men. They claim to be from the public records branch, but then they show something in a wallet which is never actually shown to the camera. And this lady here, who is actually coming from the same... Actually, both of these people are coming from the same costume party as Kathy Jones's character. Just one second, guys. I do apologize, but that was driving me nuts. They're both coming from the same costume party as Kathy Jones. She's actually the woman in charge in the archive here who's authorized to handle these documents. These two fellas are coming to take those documents before they are discovered by the public. The documents seem to be the crux of the plot. Again, this is Kathy now after she has gotten to these documents by picking a lock that she should have had no ability to pick. Let me see. This is the fellows there. There's a little bit of a confrontation. Here's the scene I was talking about where they show something in a pouch or wallet of some kind, some sort of ID that's never shown to the camera for whatever reason. Maybe they just didn't have anything they could show to the camera. There's a moment here where you see a gun, which, if I recall correctly, was probably a Browning. Not that that's really relevant. But just as she's about to be caught by these guys, there's an old lady who appears out of nowhere. Well, yeah, this is the fellow that she was having dinner with earlier, who's kind of resentful that after they had sex, she went through his personal papers, following leads. But a little later, she's kind of trapped. Rick Mercer dancing as Archbishop Roach. But they keep cutting back and forth. Now she's trapped. She's losing her mind because she's not sure how to get away from these guys, and she has committed a couple of crimes. And then, out of nowhere, this old lady appears and leads her to safety. But just back here, as she's... Okay, this is quite a lays earlier. Let's see. Okay, as she's in the airport, her mother comes to meet her, played by Mary Walsh. The character's name is Frida Vogie, which is ironic because I had a wonderful teacher in high school named Mr. Vogie. This same old woman, right here, sneaks up and puts a piece of paper in Kathy Jones's pocket. But for the life of me, there's the piece of paper. What I don't understand comes back here. Let me see if I can get back to her in the archive real quick. Okay, so the old lady leads her out of the building and to a cab, and then puts her in the cab and vanishes. Literally disappears from the camera shot. Fades out. Okay. There's not much I really require from a film, but if you're going to have a phantasm feature prominently, fine. But don't make that phantasm also capable of, planting paper on people. It's weird. It's wrong. And you should be ashamed of yourself. Another thing that really comes very much to my attention here, and there is a very bizarre scene right before that in the attendance hall, but more importantly than how that happened is this. This fellow right here, he never appears any other time in the movie as far as I can tell. She shows him the documents, he says hold on to those, and that's it. He just vanishes from the film as well. Who is he? What's his part in all this? Not 100% sure. Now, it may be that because of my difficulty maintaining attention on the film, I missed this fellow earlier, but I kind of doubt it. Yeah, there's not a lot of explanation. she discovers that, in fact, the documents have been tampered with immediately after saying they haven't been. As you can see from the look on her face, it's actually fairly well acted on her part. Hi, Sasquatch. How's it going? Let's see. Stormy says she remembers Leo's. Callum Dayton says that's a bold claim. He loves his fish and chips. I've had a lot of fish and chips, and Leo's did make an amazing fish and chips. In fact, the first meal Callum had with the new year was fish and chips, fasted all day and was stuffed by the end of dinner. Okay. Sasquatch, does this works? Yes, this does works. Let's see. So, yeah, this continues on. She goes home, confronts her father, who it turns out was instrumental in the conspiracy to cover up the actual ballot count during the final ballot, which was, and here's another little note that I wanted to make as well. I've been under the impression for years that union with the United States was an option on the first ballot and was removed on the second. What was actually done was there were three options on the first ballot. There was I should put my hand actually on camera. There was, responsible government, which basically meant Newfoundland would become its own country again. There was the continuance of commission government, which after the Newfoundland economy and government collapsed in the late 30s because of the Depression, Britain basically sent a 6-man team to oversee the island, the country as a whole, and the third was confederation with Canada. On the second ballot, commission government was removed, and it was a choice between going our own way as a country or joining Canada. So, in actual fact, historically accurately, the option of joining the Americans was never actually put to the people. The idea being, the main argument against Confederation being, against Confederation directly from Commission government being that Newfoundland should be its own country in order to have the power to negotiate for itself. Whereas in the case of Commission government, the British government essentially was negotiating for us. That's one of the many issues that people have. And the film ends oddly. It's very difficult to say what had actually happened. I don't believe... It doesn't appear that Kathy Jones's character went back to Montreal to finish her studies. It appears that she stayed in Newfoundland and wrote a book. And I'm guessing that the end of the film is basically... let me just move that over. Okay. And there's the socialist piece of... Anyway, moving along. So this is the damning piece of evidence from the film. This is the actual ballot count that was suppressed, hidden. Again, this is fairly fictionalized stuff. Let's see. Callum Dayton says, from what I'm getting from this side, from that spooky granny, this just reinforces my distrust of governments in the state in general. Yeah. Let's see. And Leo Cryptus is a fairly important fellow. A little bit of personal interest. Fortune Bay is actually where I grew up. It's not really relevant, but this is actually relevant. This is part of the fictionalized part of the story. In historical documents. And to be honest, I have my own doubts about it. Bit of a conspiracy theory-ish thing. We know how conspiracy theories are these days. But I'm willing to concede the point that it may simply be a theory at this point. But the way the plot of this movie goes is that where Confederation was presented as having only won a slight majority, what they're saying here in the film is that, in fact, it was hidden, and the actual fact of the matter was that there was a massive majority for responsible government. When was this film set? Says Callum. Wait and see if we are rehearsing Peter Pan. Think happy thoughts? No. Callum's wondering when the film was set. The film is set in the closing days of 1991. Smallwood is on his deathbed. By the end of the movie, Smallwood has actually died. And Smallwood actually died in, I think it was about a week before his 91st birthday. Which means he would have been born, if I recall correctly, it was Christmas Eve 1900. And he would have been 91 a week after he died. Hi, Not a Bobcat. Nice to see you. Let's see. So just moving on here. One of the things I did love about the very end credits of this film, and I think it's probably, yeah, at the very end of the film, you see these two British officials, and of course they're British because there's a picture of the Queen behind them, burning the documents that the other two individuals had retrieved from the archive building. This guy gives a very ham-handed soliloquy about the idea that these documents might ever become public, keeping him up at night. Let me see here. Here we are. This section here. The fact that they use this is pretty humorous in my mind. All situations and characters in this film are fictitious and no resemblance to actual events or persons is intended. The film does, however, contain actual historical footage, which is true, and they do show some of the speeches and debate addresses that were given both by Smallwood, Peter Cashin, a couple of other people. Some of it very fiery, obviously, because it was the fate of a nation that they were discussing. In fact, to the point that I'm going to try and find some of Cashin's speeches from that era and see if I can't do them as readings. There's a lot of Newfoundland names here. Ferguson, McGee, Halfyard, Peters, Drake, Andrews, Devine, Fish, Warren, Moyes, Hennessy, Bueller. Bueller may not be, but, oops, wrong button. I do love the fact that the sound effects editor was Willard the Mute. But Gusset, Baker. Baker's an incredibly common name here in Newfoundland. Sharp, Shepherd. Jamarco is not so common. Cleary, Shipley. Let's see, Mahoney. A lot of Irish and English names, obviously. Quite a bit of French as well. Cormier. Which may have been Cormier when he pronounced it himself. It's hard to be sure. There was some original music. It's not bad. But one of the things that they do point out is that a lot of the work for this came from the various archives of Canada and Newfoundland. Let me see. I do like that among the people they thank is Molson Breweries. And, of course, Newfoundland journalist Bren Walsh, who died in 1989, and Secret Nation. So, there we go. So, that's that. I will kill that screen now. I'm actually over time for when I intended to end, but I'm not too worried about that. I'm going to zip through this a little bit quick. Now, what I will show you, actually, and I didn't intend to kill that one quite so quickly, this is the Secret Nation IMDb page. I don't know why Mary Walsh is featured in this image. It makes no sense to me. She is not exactly a bit character, but I'm sure there's some good reason. Now, one thing I did find was the reviews, and I do want to have a quick look at the reviews. This is bullshit. This is not another fine, understated product of the Canadian film industry. Considering this person says they saw it on a late night slot, yeah, you were probably half unconscious. A masterpiece, no. Let's have a look at some of the worst reviews. Show me the 1 stars. No 1-star review. Show me a 2-star. No 2-star reviews. Anybody else starting to get kind of suspicious about this? Good intentions, yeah. Story is interesting. In fact, to the point that remaking it might not be a bad idea. This hour has 22 minutes. Most of the people who feature most prominently in this actually started that show. Let's have a look at 4 stars. None. Interesting. 5? Yeah. 6? 7? Okay. Fine and understated? No. 8? There's not a lot of reviews, you might notice, because it wasn't a really well-received movie. Well acted, realized little gem, not really. You'll note that a lot of these people talk about Newfoundland. Yeah, not really excellent and provocative. No, I'm sorry, it's not. And it can't be that good if it's on late-night networks. But just to show you the other screen, we'll get into the conspiracy theories surrounding Newfoundland Confederation. Let me see here. Bring up the other page. Here we are. Oh, not that one. It's actually this one I want. If you guys are interested, I will throw some of these links into chat. But really, it's not all that great. There's only 2 more links I'm going to cover, and I'll be out of here anyway. So Newfoundland's union with Canada, 1949, conspiracy or choice, Peter Neary. Peter Neary is a fairly luminous name in Newfoundland. Oh, and apparently I don't have access to this one. When was this written? 71 at the latest. Interesting. Okay, well, I have no interest in downloading this, but let me see. It just talks about what was happening around that time, so that's really not that important. I'll bring up this other one, which is far more entertaining because it has cartoons. So, this is the referendum discussion. Newfoundland's 1948 referendum, People's Victory, with a question mark. Let me see if I can't bring that up a little closer. So, quite a few people had, oops, let's just go back to that, had lower than favorable, or less than favorable attitudes towards Confederation. Obviously, this is Joey Smallwood. I'm not 100% sure who this fellow is. This may be Mr. Bradley, or they may both be caricatures of Smallwood. I'm not 100% sure. Oh, here we are. Bradley there. But in any case, Newfoundland is being treated as the beast of burden for far more taxes. And that is actually true. Newfoundland's tax level did rise significantly under Confederation. Not surprising, we had gone from being a non-socialized healthcare country to being a socialized healthcare country. Let's see. Referendums are a blunt instrument to measure public sentiment. Well, no, not really. They take complex issues and reduce them to simple yes or no answers. This is true. However, contrary to the popular opinion in Canada at the time, Newfoundlanders were not stupid people. Somewhat misled, and to be fair, Smallwood was a very charismatic individual who spent a majority of his time campaigning in the bays, out away from town. Let me see here. This is, of course, the pro-Confederation groups. One of the things I will point out that I have noticed is that there were very few positive cartoons or pieces of propaganda produced. Generally, it was all negative against the other side. This, of course, is the supposed negative effect of being on your being your own country. And this is something that does come up in that film towards the end. That the concern is supposedly the state of the people. Well, if they did, in fact, deny the people the right to choose, that's a much bigger problem. And one last thing I want to talk about is actually a book by Greg Malone. And this is actually a really good book. If you have a chance to read it, you should. This link I will actually throw in chat. This is Don't Tell the Newfoundlanders. where Mr. Malone goes into fairly copious detail, occasionally very dry, about what had been said between the various interested parties during that time. Essentially, it kind of boils down to Britain conspiring with Canada to prevent Newfoundland from falling into the hands of the Americans. I think it's a fairly well-reasoned argument. Don't necessarily know that it's proven. But I have read this book at least twice, and both times, I've found very interesting things in it. I'm noticing chat is jumping, so I will have a look here. Bobcat, 22. Bobcat says he's listening, but also multitasking. That's fine. Callum Dayton mentions something called Fate of a Nation. Something considered fictitious and rubbish today, the idea of nations. Yeah, I think somewhat the reviews, Callum, somewhat suffer from the blind loyalty a lot of Newfoundlanders feel to their homeland, for lack of a better term. Certainly it isn't fair to call us a country or a nation anymore, other than broken. It's like reading the Rings of Power 5-star reviews. Disturbing. And he gives a depressed sigh. Let me see here. Yeah, so that's pretty much all the material I had to cover today. So yeah, just to do a little talking about my personal thinking. And let me know if, now that I'm leaning back in the chair, if I'm a little too quiet. I have to actually adjust my outfit. Damn it, wardrobe! But just to have a quick flick at my notes again, yeah, there's nothing there that I missed, I don't believe. One of the things that I did... good shot. That I did take from the film that I didn't get, for example, from Mr. Malone's book, but that I already had a significant sense of from having grown up and talked to some of the older folk about Confederation, about the debates, is that there is still a very significant amount of resentment. Even now, there is a lot of, how to put it? There's a lot of distrust of the result. Even myself, I would dearly love to be able to find those ballots and have a good long look at them. I think it would be people voting for what they want. It'd be the end of... I'm just waiting for chat to roll again. Trying to keep myself from sneezing because of this ring light. Let me see if I can turn that down. There we go. Just as that bulb decides to come back on finally. All my bulbs are actually working. Awesome. And I'm losing frames again. Lovely. So I'm just about done here anyway, guys. So if you have anything you want to ask me or whatever, I'll just bloviate a little bit about my opinion about Confederation currently. And if you guys have any questions or anything you want to suggest to me, by all means, let me know. But personally, I think that there's a lot of reasons to be suspect the outcome of that referendum. And of course, the light goes out on me again as I lean back. One of the biggest things that I have a problem with is the way that the story is presented in high school. In high school, Joseph Smallwood was presented as this heroic individual who saved Newfoundland by bringing us into the beautiful, loving fold of Canada. No. Joseph Smallwood was a socialist. Actually, he was a communist. And I know this because I have seen footage of him in interviews saying that Newfoundland joining Canada, quote, was the closest he could get to communism. Yeah. I understand why his statue in Gambo regularly gets buckshot flung at it. Let me see. Anything else I wanted to bring up? Oh, I did want to show you guys an image, and I will see... No, actually, I won't bother with that tonight. I think I'm good. Just looking to see if there's any questions in chat. I'll hold on for another few seconds. People voting for what they want. It'll be the end of civilization. Civil servant reaction. Yeah. Callum says, don't wear a Hawaiian shirt. I'll look ridiculous in one. I actually look damn good in Hawaiian shirts. I have a collection of Hawaiian shirts. I love my ugly shirts. In fact, I might go and get one and put on now. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, one of the biggest issues we have in Canada, in Newfoundland especially, is an over-bloated bureaucracy that really needs to be trimmed down hard. The problem is, well, the bureaucrats are the unelected power behind the throne. With a monarch, for example, if a monarch decides that a minister or someone else is a problem, they simply have them removed. In Canada, in a democratic system, you have to account for why you're doing that. Granted, a lack of accountability is a bad idea, but I can see the bonus of each side. In any case, folks, Jason Kuna is currently streaming, and I want to go and check out his stream as well. Let me just see if I can't find a link for you guys. Let me guess, that window is going to open over here. No, it's not. Something with a color. I hate colors. This is Major. Thanks for popping in, though. Let me see here. Okay, share, copy link. Okay, so if you guys want to pop over to Jason's stream, which is live at the moment, has been for about 15 minutes or so, I will be popping in there shortly. Other than that, I don't really have a lot to say. Oh, I didn't send the link. There we go. Measure, never saw that one. Callum blows a raspberry. All commies try to play the hero and saint. No, they're not trying to play it, Callum. This is the problem. They honestly see themselves as heroes and saints. They think that their ideology is virtuous. Sometimes that's because they haven't thought it all the way through, and sometimes it's because they think everyone else is a damn fool. Yeah. Let's see. This is Medra. That's probably Manitoba. Provincial government is the biggest employer. I think it's the same here in Newfoundland. It's also interesting that the federal government is now the biggest killer in Canada. Yeah. Yeah, you guys have heard my opinion on MAID. In any case, guys, I hope you're all doing well. I'm going to end it here with my usual sign-off. I hope you're having a good day. I hope you continue to have good days. And rise again until